Welcome to Life Stories, where every story is a journey, and every journey teaches us something valuable. Today, we dive into a tale of unexpected courage, resilience, and the power of standing your ground when faced with adversity. Follow along as we witness a woman's calm, strength, and wisdom in the face of danger, as she navigates a confrontation that could change everything. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to start today's story, and stay tuned for more inspiring tales that remind us of the lessons life has to offer. Let's begin this journey together. The evening air in Ohio was cool but still. The sun lingered low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the suburban park. I had just finished a 5-mile run. My legs were tired, but my mind was at ease. I always used these moments of quiet solitude to reflect, to sort through the chaos of life. I had to keep calm, keep focused, always in control, whether in the field, in the office, or even in life. I slowed my pace as I approached the worn path by the park's edge, where the rustling of trees was the only sound that broke the stillness. My bright yellow hoodie and the well-worn running shoes I wore were the only thing that hinted at the kind of day I had: focused, disciplined, and purposeful. Life as an FBI tactical expert had no room for distractions, and I had learned that lesson well. But tonight, I just wanted a quiet walk before heading back home. The only thing on my mind was the peaceful solitude I had longed for since my shift started that morning. Then, I saw him. He was an older white man, hunched over by his bike, grease staining his hands as he fumbled with the chain. His frustration was clear. He was struggling, trying to fix something that was clearly out of his depth. Without hesitation, I decided to stop and offer help. I had dealt with my share of tough situations, but there was something about seeing this man, alone, trying to fix a problem he couldn't solve, that made me pause. "Looks like that bike's got a mind of its own," I said with a smile, trying to ease the tension I could see in his eyes. He chuckled nervously, relieved by my presence. "I think you're right. I've been here for ages and haven't gotten anywhere." I gave him a reassuring look. "Lucky for you. I'm good with tools," I said as I pulled out a multi-tool from my backpack and knelt down beside him. The sound of the chain being fixed was almost soothing, a comforting rhythm in an otherwise silent park. Just as I was about to finish, I heard it. The low rumble of an approaching engine. It wasn't the usual hum of a passing car. This was a clunky, battered pickup truck, its rusty frame rattling as it screeched to a halt nearby. Something about the sound sent a shiver through me. My instincts were already on high alert. I stood up, my body tensing as the truck's engine cut off. 3 men climbed out, their movements slow and deliberate. They weren't just casual guys out for a stroll. No, their torn flannel shirts, stained jeans, and sneers carved into their faces made it clear they were trouble. The tension in the air was palpable, and I immediately knew something was off. The tallest of the 3, his eyes cold and calculating, grinned as he looked over me and the older man. Well, ain't this a scene?" he said, his voice dripping with mockery. He paused, scanning us both, then smirked. "After hours charity work. Huh." I kept my composure, my voice measured as I turned to face them. "Evening, gentlemen. Something I can help you with?" He snorted, and the stocky man behind him spat on the ground near my feet, clearly trying to intimidate me. "Help," he sneered. "We were just wondering what someone like you is doing around here this late." I didn't flinch, didn't give them the satisfaction. "Just heading home," I replied evenly. "If you'll excuse me." But they weren't about to let me walk away. The leader stepped closer, blocking my path. "Not so fast," he said, his smirk now replaced by something darker. "You think you can just walk through here like you own the place? Maybe you need a little reminder of whose place this is." I felt my fingers brush against the edge of my backpack, where my comms device rested, a safety net I hoped I wouldn't need. But in this moment, I knew it was time to rely on everything I had learned over the years. Years of training. Years of being ready for this exact kind of moment. The leader had a knife clipped to his belt. The stocky one had a chain wrapped around his wrist. And the wiry man, who stood slightly apart, favored his left leg. Weak point, I noted. But that wasn't going to matter unless I had to act. I knew better than to underestimate them, even if their bravado seemed inflated. I squared my shoulders, keeping my voice steady. You don't want to do this. The three men laughed, a harsh, grating sound that only made the tension worse. The older man, still visibly scared, took a shaky step back. His fear was written all over his face. I caught his eye, silently urging him to leave. Go, I whispered, my voice firm but soft. He hesitated, caught between guilt and self-preservation. But eventually, he turned and shuffled off, leaving me alone with the men. The leader moved first, lunging at me with the knife, aiming low. His sudden movement was a mistake. I sidestepped easily, caught his wrist in a firm grip, and twisted it sharply. The knife clattered to the ground. Before he could react, I kicked his knee out from under him, dropping him to the dirt with a groan. The stocky man cursed, swinging his chain in a wide arc, hoping to catch me off guard. But I was already moving, ducking as the chain whipped past me, and in one swift motion, I jabbed my fist into his ribs, leaving him gasping for air. The wiry man, who had been hanging back, suddenly rushed me, emboldened by the chaos. But I had already anticipated his move. I sidestepped him and used his momentum to trip him, sending him sprawling to the ground beside his comrades. They regrouped quickly, their faces twisted with rage and humiliation. I could see it in their eyes, they weren't backing down. This fight was far from over. I stood my ground, my breath steady, ready for whatever came next. The air around us felt charged now, thick with unspoken threats and rising adrenaline. The three men slowly circled, trying to regain their footing. Their eyes narrowed in disgust. The leader, still on the ground but struggling to stand, wiped the dirt from his hands and sneered. You think you're some kind of hero, don't you? He spat, his words dripping with venom. Just because you're some big shot in that fancy outfit, you can come in here and play the tough guy? I didn't respond, my focus unwavering. My eyes flicked between them, calculating their movements, assessing the situation. I had been in situations like this before, more than I cared to admit. It was always the same, a bunch of brash individuals who overestimated their strength when confronted with someone who knew how to handle themselves. But I wasn't naive. These men weren't just looking for a confrontation. There was something deeper here, something personal in the way they eyed me, as if they saw me as a threat beyond just being an inconvenience. The stocky man, recovering from the blow to his ribs, grunted as he pulled a bat from behind his back. No more games, he muttered, his breath shallow, his grip tight on the bat's handle. Let's make this a real fight. I didn't move. Not yet. I knew how to keep calm under pressure, how to keep a level head in the midst of chaos. But I also knew that the moment I made the wrong move, it could all spiral out of control. One wrong step, one lapse in judgment, and the consequences could be irreversible. The wiry man scrambled to his feet, his gaze locking onto me with a hatred that went beyond mere anger. He took a few tentative steps forward, holding a small crowbar with a white-knuckled grip. The leader, now on his feet, cursed under his breath, wiping blood from his lip. We're not leaving until we've taught you a lesson, the leader growled. And for the first time, I could see the fear flickering behind his eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. He was trying to mask it with anger, with bravado, but it was slipping through. I had a choice. I could back off, diffuse the situation, and avoid further escalation. Or I could finish this now, take them down and show them there was no place for this kind of aggression. But I wasn't just thinking of myself. I wasn't even thinking of the fight. My mind was on the older man, the one I had helped just moments ago. He was the reason I had stopped in the first place. His vulnerability, his uncertainty, it had been too much to ignore. And now, I was faced with the consequences of that decision. Was it worth it? Was I really helping? Or was I just getting myself caught up in something that wasn't mine to fix? I couldn't let these men win. Not in front of the man who had already been humiliated by their presence. I couldn't let them think they could do whatever they wanted, without consequence. But I also knew that my actions here weren't just about protecting myself, they were about standing up for someone else. I wasn't just fighting for my own pride. I was fighting for a principle. For the idea that we should always stand up for what's right, no matter the odds. The stocky man swung the bat, aiming for my head. It was a wild swing. Desperate. And I had no trouble dodging it. The force of the swing left him off balance. And I took advantage of that, stepping in close and landing a sharp elbow to his throat. The bat fell from his hands as he gasped for air, staggering back. I didn't give him time to recover. I turned to face the wiry man, who had raised the crowbar above his head, ready to strike. Without hesitation, I lunged forward, using his own momentum to twist his arm and disarm him. The crowbar clattering to the ground. I didn't stop there, quickly following up with a well-placed knee to his abdomen, knocking the wind out of him. He crumpled to the ground, gasping. But I didn't linger. My eyes were fixed on the leader. He was the real threat, the one who had started all of this. As I turned to face him, I could see the shift in his demeanor. The bravado was gone, replaced by a growing panic. He knew that he was outmatched, and his next move would be critical. But the moment stretched out between us, and for just a second, the world seemed to slow down. His gaze flickered to the ground, his fingers twitching as if considering his next move. I knew he was calculating, trying to figure out a way to salvage what was left of his pride. I didn't give him that time. I moved in, quickly closing the gap between us. He attempted to make a feeble swipe with a broken bottle, but I easily deflected it. In a fluid motion, I grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and brought him to his knees. "Enough," I said, my voice cold, but calm. "You're done." He struggled beneath me, but I held him firm, not giving him the chance to break free. The fight was over. But as I looked down at him, my thoughts drifted to the moment before, to the decision that had brought me here. What had started as a simple act of kindness had turned into something more, a test of strength, of conviction. And in that moment, I realized just how much of life came down to those moments of choice. Would I have made the same decision if I had known what was coming? I didn't know. But I did know one thing: some battles aren't just about fighting for what's right, they're about showing. As I stood there, watching the three men stumble away, nursing their bruises and egos, I couldn't help but reflect on the lesson learned. Sometimes, standing up for what's right doesn't come without a cost. But that's the beauty of life. Each challenge, each confrontation, teaches us something deeper about ourselves. We're not just fighting battles, we're shaping who we are with every choice we make. And sometimes, the right choice is the hardest one to live with. But it's always the one that defines us. Thank you for following along with this story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life stories that inspire, challenge, and motivate. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where we'll dive deeper into life's lessons. See you soon.